pie. So in this session we're going to be making lemon meringue pie. So one of my favourites, I love lemon desserts. Perfect balance of a nice tart lemon curd or lemon curd filling, and then topped off with some nice Italian meringue. You can make French, you can make Swiss as well. I just find Italian works best, especially if you're using it in the restaurant. You're serving individual portions. Pipe the Italian meringue on as you need it, or Swiss meringue. You can do hot sugar meringue. It's up to you. Right, so anyway, moving forward, we're going to go on with making the base first. So I've got a 20cm tart ring here, and I've got some short crust pastry that I've pre-made, I've set, so it's nice and chilled, ready to go. I've got a little bit of flour here, just a little bit, just on the bench, just to sprinkle on, stop it from sticking, make sure you don't get any cling film stuck in it. A little bit more over the top. And then I'm going to start rolling. So already the size of the, when you look at the size of the tart case and the size of my pastry, I already don't need to roll it out too much. But what I'm doing is, it is a little bit stiff. I could have maybe let it sit out on the side for a couple of minutes to soften, not long. But what I find with that is that this pastry can warm up very quickly, so I'd rather start it cold from the fridge. So just rolling from the centre out. I'm not pushing too hard at the beginning, just gently working it. But always work from the centre out. Trying to keep it even and constantly moving the pastry. The last thing you want is it stuck to the bottom of it, onto the bottom of the bench. Try and keep it square as much as possible. Starting to get to the size that I want, so already I'm looking at this, it's almost at about the right length. So twist it round, get it the other way. Know the right thickness. Lovely. So roll it up onto my rolling pin, and now I'm going to just drop that over. Just be careful, don't put the weight of the rolling pin onto the pastry, because what will happen is that will then push through, the weight will push through and break and make a tear in your pastry. So already I'm just going around, just roughly taking a little bit of the pastry from the outside. And now what I'm going to do is just now lift it, tuck it in a little bit. So tuck it into those, start to tuck it in those corners, take the weight off the edges. As the pastry gets warmer, the weight of the pastry will tear it at the top of the pastry ring, or the tart ring. So just be careful of that. If you're using a very sharp edged one, you're going to have to work even quicker than that. These ones are quite forgiving. So now I've got to that stage, I take a little bit of this excess dough, dust it just lightly, and what I'm doing is I'm lifting from the top. You just see I'm trying not to be too close because I've got my stave on for making my filling. If I start from lift up the flat, and then I just push the pastry right down into my corners, because what I don't want is I don't want that ski slope. I want that to be really nicely filled right into those corners. I don't want the pastry to shrink away. So I'm just lifting it up and letting it, pushing it down into those corners. I don't want to try and stretch the pastry either. If I don't lift it, it will stretch the pastry down, and when it cooks, it will want to shrink back. So this is about It's about just taking your time, getting into those corners. Lovely. So what I'm going to do, never cut, never tear, it's always cut your pastry. But what I want to do is leave an overhang and prevent shrinkage. I can trim it afterwards. Just double check, go around and feel that in some of these corners just need pushed down again. It wasn't quite in properly because I don't want it to shrink away. Just touch it really lightly. What you don't want to do is tear your pastry in any way. With a filling like this lemon meringue, it's quite forgiving. It will set quite quick and not leak. There's something like a lemon tart, it wouldn't be forgiven, and you'll find that most of your tart filling is actually all over the tray. So now I've got it to this stage, I'm going to take that pastry off and I'm going to remould that, ready for making something else. And all I'm going to do is I'm now going to just fork this all over. And what that's going to do, that's just going to stop the pastry from puffing up from underneath, any trapped air that's underneath. So it just prevents that. Now I need to let it rest. Because I've moved the pastry around, because I've been working with the pastry, activates the gluten, so I need to let it rest. Ideally a couple of hours, at least 30 minutes. So now I'm going to blind bake my pastry. It's been resting for a half an hour, so I've got a bit of double-lined cling film over the pastry, and then I'm just going to fill it with the baking beans. I prefer cling film to foil. I find that it gets right into those corners better. And now that's going to take between 22-25 minutes to blind bake. I can then take off the baking beans if it's slightly underneath. I can just cook it for a few more minutes. So I blind baked my tart case, did it for about 22 minutes. That's ready to go. Now I need to make my filling. So I've got 140 grams of sugar in here, 175 water. I'm now going to add to it 35 grams of corn flour. I'm just going to give those a whisk. What I don't want is any lumps in the corn flour. So just spend a minute just whisking those lumps out. I'll add my 35 grams of butter. And then I'm going to add my lemon. So I'm just going to massage those a little bit. Make sure they're nice and soft. And then what I'm going to do, use a microplane for this so you get maximum flavour out. They're ready to go. I'm just going to put a sieve over the top. Squeeze out as much juice as you can. Use a fork if you want, use a juicer. These are quite soft. So move that out of the way. Now all I'm going to do is put that on the stove to thicken. So my curd or my filling has been on the stove for a couple of minutes now, starting to steam, starting to warm up, so that the corn flour is now just starting to thicken. So I'm just going to move my tart case a little bit closer. I've also got a bit of double-lined cling film. That I'm going to put on the top of the tart, on the filling, and that's going to stop it forming a skin, but also for when that's cool, it's going to protect it for when I use a knife to shave off the pastry off of the overhang. So it has like a double purpose. If you want, you can make French meringue, whisking up your eggs and sugar, and then pipe that on and bake it. Take about 40 minutes. Or you can do Swiss meringue, or I do Italian meringue. So with Italian meringue, what I do is I make it for service, make it for when I want to serve the tart, because it may be the following day, and then what I can do is pipe it on and then bake it through the oven. Even individual slices, I can pipe on some meringue and bake it in the oven. The filling will hold its shape with the corn flour and the egg yolk in it, and the meringue will just crisp up nicely. So this is just thickening up really well now. What I want to do is see that it's boiling like you would say a creme patisserie. We want to make sure that that corn flour is cooking out, and it won't have a raw flavour, but you can see it's really, really thick. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove that from the heat. And whisk in my egg yolks. And what you'll see is the colour transform to more deep yellow colour, more what we'd expect to see from a tart or a curd. So just take that out, and all I'm going to do now is just empty that filling my tart case. If you want, you can pass out the zest, but I quite like it in there. If you use it nice and fine like I did, you don't notice it's in there. If you use a thicker zester, I recommend you take it out, because otherwise you'll have lumps of zest in there, which won't be too nice. It won't have a nice mouthfeel. So in there, I'm just going to spread it out with the spatula. Like that. Now I can cling film the surface. So it stops it forming that skin. Like I say, it will also protect it. Protect it from when scrape off the overhang of the pastry, so we don't get pastry all over the filling. And also, you can use it then. It just helps to flatten out the surface. So there we go. Now it's going to go in the glass chiller on the fridge just to set, and then it'll be ready to finish. So I'm now looking to finish off the lemon meringue pie. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a knife just to shave all the way around to take that pastry off. So we get that nice clean finish. Okay, so now I'll take that off. I can slip off the mousse ring. pipe on my meringue. Up to you how high you want it. Just get grip there. Completely up to you what design you do for your meringue. Now I'm just going to bake that in the oven for a couple of minutes until it's golden. So normally I'd make a double-sized tart to this. I'd make a double recipe of that, and I'd make a nice big deep fill lemon meringue pie. But just when we're making small ones for home and family, I just half the recipe. It is incredibly soft and crumbly. Expands and starts to crisp up in the oven. But there we have the lemon meringue pie.